Well, good morning, everyone. It's a real joy to be here with you this morning. I see all of you have already cleaned up your yards, put all the plants back outside. My garage is full, my guest room is full. It looks like a conservatory, but I'll get to it, right? So it seems that there was this elderly gentleman, and he needed a new car. His Camry was 20 years old. And he knew that it would be the last car that he ever bought. And he'd always wanted a red convertible Mustang with a white convertible top and white leather interior. So he took his old Camry down to the Ford dealer. He got $1,500 for it. He traded it in, got this beautiful Mustang. They put the temporary plates on the back of it. He put the bill of sale in the glove compartment. He put the top down. He got behind the wheel, he started the car, boom, 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 boom. Oh, that sound. He took it out on the highway. He's driving along. The wind is blowing through what's left of his hair. He says, I think I'll see what this car can do. 75 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour, 90, 100, 110 miles an hour. All of a sudden, flashing blue lights in his rearview mirror, and he thinks to himself, I can outrun this guy, and he floors the car. It literally leaps forward for about a second, and he goes, what am I doing? What am I doing? They'll take my driver's license away. So he slows the car down. He puts his turn signal over. He gets in the lane there out of traffic. He watches as the policeman gets out of the car. He goes, I'm going to be in so much trouble. I have no idea what this is going to cost. So the highway patrolman comes up to him and he says, son, I see you're driving this brand new, beautiful automobile. If you can give me, I've got 30 minutes left on my shift here. If you can give me one really good reason why you're driving this automobile at 120 miles an hour, I'm going to let you go without a ticket. And the man thinks for a minute. He says, well, officer, you see, it's this way. 3 years ago, my wife ran away with a highway patrolman, and I was afraid you were bringing her back. That's my favorite joke of all times. Well, I understand that you have been learning about the 12 powers, which were identified by Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, and my power today is the power of order. Now, we all know how good it feels when everything is orderly, right? You know, when the kitchen is clean and all the dishes are put away, or when our desks are neat and tidy. I'm still working on that one. Or when we make up our bed every day. Brene Brown says that if you make up your bed every day, it'll spill into the whole rest of your life, and the rest of your life will be orderly. Try it, it works. Or how about when we take our cars to the car wash? Before the hurricane, I took my car to the car wash. It's been sitting in the garage. It's all nice and clean. I got out this morning and I went, yeah, that looks pretty good. So when things are kind of out of order, when they're messy, at least for me, it's very unsettling. When my house is messy, I just want to walk out the door and leave that mess behind. Wouldn't it be great if our houses were like a dishwasher? Like when you went out in the morning and you set the alarm, you could also set it to clean. And when you came back, 3 or 4 or 5 hours later, everything was spotless. There wouldn't be any dust on the TV screen. All the clothes would be hanging in the closet all nice and clean. Why doesn't somebody invent that? Well, I don't know about you, but it sort of feels like things are a little bit out of order in the whole world, even not counting the hurricanes. Things are not in the places they're supposed to be in, and hurricanes do that, don't they? I suspect that most of you suffered some kind of damage from the hurricane. I know I have lots of leaves and twigs and things down, and I was without power. I'm sure some of you experienced that also. But all in all, it was pretty mild. I know a lot of people suffered a lot worse. We had Hurricane Helene. There's a big tree around the corner. Hurricane Helene took half of it out, and they had to clean it up. And they left this trunk of dead tree and a giant branch. Well, Hurricane Milton finished that tree off. It's gone. I thought that my pool had a leak in it because the water in the spa went down, and I went, oh, no. But then I thought, wait a minute, the power's been off. So I went out and I flipped some switches and I fooled with the control and I fixed it myself. I was so proud of me. I managed to get it running again. I noticed there was a great big tree down on State Route 74 and big power lines were in the street. Well, Friday morning, knowing I was going to talk about order today, I spent Friday putting everything back into its place, all the flashlights, all the candles, all that sort of thing. I plugged all the appliances and things back in. I always unplug my computer when there might be a power surge or whatever to protect it. But I'll tell you what, it's going to take a while to rake up all those leaves. When we moved 2 years ago, the movers kept our rake. I had to go buy a rake. I was in Ace Hardware yesterday, and 3 people behind me were buying the same rake. I know what they were going to do with them, right? But I'm safe, and so is my family, although my daughter in Sarasota, my son in Bradenton don't have any power yet. So I guess that it's appropriate that we're thinking about order this morning since things seem to be so out of order. Now, there's one thing I know, that what we think about a lot creates our world. And what we say out loud and what we give energy to, what we put our thoughts and emotions to, makes stuff happen faster. Sometimes that self-talk in our heads is positive. We tell ourselves, man, you look really good today. You know, you're prosperous. You know, people love you. Sometimes the self-talk is negative, and I'm not going to say that out loud because I really don't want to hear it. In Unity, we have this unity speak, these unity-isms, this jargon. You know, I think every field has their own jargon, right? Doctors use a lot of words that came from Latin, and engineers have their own terminology. Everybody has their own terminology. We have terminology in Unity. And we've been saying these words and phrases for so long that we don't even really think about the meaning behind them. We use metaphors that we think everybody knows and understands, and sometimes this causes confusion. This morning, I would like to take one of those phrases that we say all the time, maybe by rote, and examine it to see if it's exactly true. That phrase is, it's all in divine order. It's all in divine order. Think about what that means to you. It's all in divine order. I've said it a million times, and I bet you've said it also. Now, it's true that we live in an orderly universe, right? The earth rotates around the sun. It takes a whole year for the earth to get around the sun, and then just a little bit more, which is why we have leap year, February 29th, every 4 years to make up for that quarter of a day that it takes the earth to go around the sun. That rotation is orderly, right? We can count on it. It's predictable. It doesn't change very much. We can calculate the time that the sun comes up and the sun goes down far into the future. We can even make scientific calculations if the earth wobbles a little bit on its axis. I didn't realize it did that. We don't feel it, do we? Did you know that the magnetic forces on the earth that go from the North and South Pole change so much that every week or 10 days, they have to give pilots a new map because they use those magnetic lines to fly? I didn't know that. We know when there'll be eclipses and other celestial phenomena because it follows an orderly progression. We know where every star constellation will be at what time of the year. And we know that the force of gravity, thank goodness, holds us onto the planet. We can count on all of that to be orderly. We all agree to stop for red lights and go for green lights. If we didn't, we'd be crashing into each other. When it gets too noisy in the courtroom, what does the judge do? He bangs his gavel, order in the court, order in the court. But what exactly is divine order? Many times when something happens we don't expect, we justify it by saying, well, it's all in divine order. For example, maybe the company you work for goes bankrupt, but you don't really put 2 and 2 together and say, well, you know, if I'd met my sales quota, we might not have gone bankrupt. We just say, oh, well, it's all in divine order. We know that there are forces outside ourselves that we do not have control over. That's true. I think that we use the term divine order to try and explain how these forces outside of us work. Now, these things can be either positive or they can be negative. We say that it's divine order when we meet our soulmate and we fall in love. We say it's divine order when we win money in the lottery. I won $2 a couple weeks ago. Woo woo. We say it's divine order when a tree falls in a hurricane and it doesn't land on a house or a car. I think we call it divine order when something happens that's beyond our control, whether it's positive or negative. But do we really believe in a God outside of ourselves orchestrating the universe? Think about that for a minute. You know, this brings to mind the idea that I was given as a child of God, you know, sitting on a golden throne in a white robe with a white beard and a gold staff up in some obscure place called heaven, dictating, you get a Rolls Royce, you get to walk. That's not what it's like. The term divine order makes me think that God is this grand puppeteer and that we're marionettes and God's pulling our strings because it's all divine order. Are we marionettes and God's are pulling our strings? Are we puppets following some divine script? I don't believe I'm a puppet, and I don't believe you're a puppet either. Is there predestination? That everything that's going to happen has been predetermined? I don't think so. If so, I might just give up right now. If everything's predetermined, then I really don't have a chance at how my life turns out. And if I don't have a chance, well, then maybe I don't have any responsibility for it either. Is God directing everything by divine order? What choice do I have? Am I responsible for doing what God has ordained? Think about that for a minute. We've been taught that we have free will. Well, that's the opposite of divine order. We teach in Unity that we can change the world by changing what we think and what we do. I know this works because I do it all the time, and I bet you do too. I believe that there's no such thing as divine order if that gives God all the power and takes away my power to order my life. In his little book, Get Over It, Reverend Paul Hasselbeck, I don't know if any of you have taken any of his metaphysics classes. He was my metaphysics teacher in seminary, and he knows what he's talking about when he's talking about metaphysics. He says that divine order is one of the most misunderstood New Thought concepts. It's most used in the traditional sense that there's a God outside of us ordering everything that happens in the universe, including our daily lives. The idea that there is a set order for our lives and that all our activities are governed by it. Reverend Hasselbeck says that most people get divine order out of order, and I like that because that phrase is so poorly understood and misused. It's become more of a statement of resignation rather than the statement of power it's meant to be. I think we're getting somewhere now. In his book, 12 Powers, some of you may be reading that while you're studying the 12 Powers, Mr. Fillmore says that we can never exercise dominion until we know who and what we are, and knowing, bring forth the knowledge into the external by exercising it in divine order, which is mind, idea, expression. Mr. Fillmore's saying that divine order is mind, idea, expression. That's our creative power. From this quotation, we can see that Charles Fillmore did not see divine order as a divine fiat or divine proclamation or even predestination. Rather, Fillmore sees it as a divine process, what Reverend Hasselbeck calls our point of power. In Fillmore's writings, we learn that everything that is manifest in the created world is first based on a divine idea, A divine idea comes from the mind of God. That's mind with a capital M. Everything in the manifest world comes into expression through the process of mind, idea, expression, which Mr. Fillmore says is divine order. It's a universal process, and it works for everyone who uses it. Divine order is not an event. It's a process which is always present and always available to everyone. And you can use that process for good, or you can use it for not good. The effects that we're experiencing in our lives now are the result of being divinely ordered through the process of mind, idea, expression. So how does mind, idea, expression work? Because I wouldn't be much of a minister if I didn't explain the process, right? First, we get a great idea, like having a house that's a dishwasher. Who's working on that for me? We think about that idea, maybe for a long time, while it germinates in our minds. We hold it in thought, working through the process of how to create what we're thinking about. Have you ever had one of those ideas that just keeps coming back, nagging at you, like you think you're supposed to do it, but I don't know, it's too hard, or I'm too scared, or no, why me, right? When that happens to me, I know I'm supposed to pay attention because that's spirit calling me higher. And I know that if I don't know how to do something I'm thinking about, there's always a way or someone that'll help me. Because if God has an idea for you, it won't go away. When I have an idea, I have this thing I call my mental screen. I imagine that it's in my forehead. Say I want to create something kind of mechanical. Say I want to make a bookcase, right? So I think about it in my mind first. I go step by step. Okay, so I'm going to need some wood, and I'm going to need to make a frame on the sides. Now, do I want to put the top and bottom this way, or do I want to put them this way? And where do I want to put the shelves? And will I need screws, or will I need nails? And do I want to put a back on it? I do all of that in my mind first before I go to the garage and get the saw and the wood out. Well, say you wanted to enter your chili recipe in a chili cook-off. Most of you know a little bit about cooking, I suppose, because we all eat. So my mother taught me to make that kind of bland chili that uses a little bit of chili powder. My son has a cast iron stomach, and he likes things really hot. So if I want to make a little spicier chili recipe than one I learned as a child, I just think about it. Okay, what would I put in my chili to make it spicier? Well, I could add some jalapenos, that would work, or I could add some cayenne pepper, or I could get some of those hatch chilies that they all, at certain season in Arizona that they have, or some poblanos, that'd be really hot. So I work through all the processes of what I'm going to create in my mind before I actually create it physically, because it saves a whole lot of time. During that ideation process, we might share an idea with someone we trust because they might be able to help us with some input. They might just provide that missing piece that completes the idea. And then finally, after I've decided I'm going to add jalapenos and cayenne pepper to my chili to spice it up, then I bring it into the manifest world by getting the tomato sauce out and the hamburger out and the onions and all of that and putting it together. And I already know how to do it because I've been thinking of it. Mind, idea, expression. Now, if our idea is not fully formed, we may have to put more than one idea together, and it may take a little time, but that's okay. The best part of the process is if we don't like what's currently showing up in our lives right now, this is a process you use to change all of the circumstances in your life. We just have to think up of a new idea of how we want the world to be. If you don't hear anything else I say today, you can think up a new idea of how you want the world to be. If you're tired of all the craziness that's going on, then sit for 5 minutes by yourself and imagine the world peaceful. I promise it'll help. If nothing else, you'll become more peaceful. When we do this mind idea expression, we visualize how we want them to look, what we want them to taste like, what they smell like, what they feel like. And before long, our whole world will change. Mr. Fillmore writes in his book, Christian Healing, all people who have studied metaphysics and understand somewhat the action of the mind recognizes there is one underlying law, and that through this law, all things come into expression. There is one universal mind, that's capital M, the source and sole origin of all real intelligence, that's God mind. First in mind, then mind expresses itself in ideas, and then the ideas make themselves manifest. You might say that instead of things being in divine order, that we are divinely ordering our world. That puts us in control of our lives rather than believing that the world happens to us. We begin to see that the events in our life happen through us, not to us. We're truly the creators of everything that we are experiencing. Everything. Reverend Hasselbeck calls this our point of power. And this is the process that the elderly gentleman used to manifest his Mustang. He had that idea for many, many years. He knew he wanted a red Mustang with a white convertible top and white interior. He imagined his hands on the steering wheel. He imagined the roar of that powerful engine. He imagined how much fun it would be to put the top down and drive down the street on a sunny day. And then he expressed it by going out and buying one. He kept this idea in his mind, and he expressed that idea by going down to the car lot and driving the car off the lot. The red Mustang was just an idea until he acted. God is not out there divinely ordering every event. God is not a master puppeteer pulling our strings. You have the power and the ability to change your life for the better, no matter what it looks like today. Divine order is a process itself we use to bring about everything in our lives. By using the power of mind idea expression, we can divinely order our experience. The choice is yours. Thank you.